He slipped into a rock crack only 14 inches wide, a place no one had ever entered before. 30 hours fighting for his life. The largest cave rescue operation in UK history at the time. But in the end, they couldn't pull him out. They couldn't even recover his body. He didn't die from injuries. He died from his own breath. A chilling true story of tragedy deep underground, the Neil Moss Cave incident. March 22, 1959, Castleton, Derbyshire. 7 men stood at the entrance of Peak Cavern, a cold, unforgiving cave. Among them was Neil Moss, a 20-year-old Oxford student. 4 others were from the British Speleological Association, all experienced cavers. Their goal that day: explore a narrow shaft about 40 feet deep at the end of the stalagmite chamber. This crack had just been discovered. No one had ever entered it before. They came well prepared: a 75-foot rope ladder, waterproof suits, and carbide lamps that gave off a strong smell, but only lit up a few feet ahead. They started moving forward, boots squished in the mud. Metal gear clinked softly against the rock. Little did they know, this narrow shaft would become their cruelest trap. Peak Cavern isn't just a cave, it's an underground maze stretching almost 2,000 feet. Wet, cold, pitch black. They had to get past deep water pools, a tight squeeze called the eye hole, and a 250-foot crawl over slick rock and thick mud. After this exhausting journey, they finally reached the stalagmite chamber, sitting about 1,000 feet below ground. A massive room with a high ceiling where a pitch-black hole waited at the far end. The entrance was an oval-shaped opening, only about 14 to 18 inches wide. No one knew exactly how deep it went. It's almost unthinkable that someone would dare slide into the unknown. The group secured the top of the rope ladder. The cold clang of metal hitting rock echoed through the chamber. Neil, tall and thin, volunteered to go first to set the ladder. At first, Neil slipped down easily. The space was tight but not crushing yet. His hands gripped the ladder. Each breath echoed back dry and heavy. Then, the spiral section appeared, a twisted part in the middle, splitting the shaft into 2 20-foot sections. Neil had to turn sideways, his shoulders twisting one way, his hips the other. Every movement was a struggle. His yellowish carbide lamp lit up the wet rock walls. Mud stuck to his hands. His breathing bounced back loud and labored. Neil made it past the twist and let out a sigh of relief. But when he looked down, an even narrower, darker section waited with no visible bottom. They had no clue this was Neil's final taste of freedom. Neil slid down further. The lower section was only about 18 inches wide. The space crushed around his chest, shoulders, and hips. He tried to push the ladder deeper. Then he ran into a large rock blocking the way. He reached out and used all his strength to move the rock aside to clear the path. But the rock slipped. It fell and jammed against the ladder. The ladder twisted and locked tight against the rock wall. Neil panicked. He tried to climb back up. He pushed his foot on the rung to lift himself, but the crack was too tight. His shoulders and hips were wedged into the narrowest point. The ladder rungs were spaced too far apart, about 12 inches, and the shaft was too narrow for him to pull up his legs or push off. He couldn't move up. He couldn't slide down. Right then, he had no idea every escape route had sealed shut forever. Above, the group panicked. They tried pulling the ladder up. Neil moved up slightly, but that pull forced him even tighter into the narrow crack, locking him in even more. Tension spread across everyone's faces. Neil had now been stuck for nearly 4 hours. Then something unexpected made things even worse. He started showing signs of delirium. The air around him grew thick and heavy. This was foul air filled with carbon dioxide and dangerously low in oxygen. Inside that narrow shaft, Neil's breath couldn't escape. He kept rebreathing his own exhaled air over and over. His body weakened, his chest locked up, his vision blurred. His mind started to fade. The group looked at each other. In that moment of pure desperation, they decided to call for rescue. It became the biggest cave rescue operation in the UK at that time, with over 200 people involved. Local cavers, RAF teams, mine rescue crews, Navy divers all came carrying ropes, oxygen tanks, gear, and crowbars. They tried everything, pulling the ladder, tying ropes around Neil, hooking his clothes. But every time they pulled, the ropes slipped or snapped. All their efforts moved Neil just a few inches, then nothing. Some rescuers even risked sliding down to him. The thick carbon dioxide knocked at least 3 people unconscious. They had to be pulled out urgently. Oxygen tanks were sent down, but there wasn't enough space to fit a mask. Every method failed. Some tried taking a deep breath from an oxygen hose, holding it, and rushing to reach Neil, but the crack was too narrow. They couldn't loop a rope over his shoulders. They couldn't turn around. Each descent only brought more mud and more despair. On the second day of the rescue, June, Bailey 18 was asked to go down. The planned climb as close as possible to Neil. If she could break his collarbone to narrow his shoulders and pull him up. But the carbon dioxide was already too thick. Their last chance vanished. In that instant, the grim truth hit them. Neil was beyond saving. After 30 hours trapped, Neil's breathing turned shallow and weak, then faded completely. Doctors confirmed Neil didn't die from injuries, but from suffocation. Meanwhile, heavy rain threatened to flood Peak Cavern, putting rescuers in danger. This led to a heartbreaking decision. Neil's father, Eric, requested that they stop trying to recover his son's body. He didn't want to risk any more lives. The shaft was sealed with loose rocks. A simple inscription was carved, Neil Moss. The stalagmite chamber was renamed Moss Chamber in his memory. This incident became a turning point. Cave rescue standards were rewritten emphasizing the deadly risk of foul air filled with carbon dioxide and low oxygen that can silently kill. Neil Moss's name is carved into the cave wall, a cold reminder that he didn't die from an impact, but from his own breath, a fate sealed by a single step. Moss's story spread around the world, hitting headlines across Europe, Australia, and the US. It was even retold in the 2004 novel One Last Breath by Stephen Booth, and in a 2006 documentary by Derbyshire explorer Dave Webb. Caves can be beautiful, mesmerizing, but there's always a thin line between adventure and fate. Would you dare cross that line or stop before the dark pit swallows you? If this story gave you chills, what do you think of Neil's story? Share your thoughts below, and don't forget to subscribe so we can keep uncovering the buried tragedies beneath the earth together.